Tuesday night.
Yeah, yeah.
Monday night,
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
It's good to stay last night.
So it's cause the whole workforce to shift. And they come and do this.
Yeah. It was John asked me to share something.
Mr. Haynes, please.
All right, we're gonna call the meeting order. Let everybody got to know about the location. We do have four, but we need to excuse Mr. Briggs.
Motion to
Second.
excuse.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Okay. Dr. Cannon.
We have the minutes from our prior February 12th meeting in the packet. If there are no questions or discussions, I would move to adopt those, accept those.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Checking on public comments. Got it? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. There's 3 items on the consent agenda. If we have any questions, comments, clarifications, we need to pull it from the consent agenda. Otherwise. Any questions on the consent agenda?
No, ma'am.
All right, take a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to new business, administrative reports.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I have no report, but I do have one closed session item. It will be to discuss contract negotiations.
Thank you.
I have several items for the executive director's report. First is to thank you for your patience. We thank our parent agency, the county's Office of Space. When we have conflicts, this is our emergency location. The acoustics aren't perfect, but we appreciate your patience. We are filming. We will not be filming the board workshop, however. And it will also take place in here. For your executive director's report, we do have the key indicators, the safety report, the environmental report, the strategic plan update, and the economic development projects update. Staff is ready to take any questions on those items.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Ken, I wanted to comment on, I often bring out the key indicators. Development services activities, development services. We saw an uptick, a serious uptick in the inspections performed category. I think that's the best out of the last 9 months. Excuse me, best 9 out of 12 months, to be more accurate. I think it's a wonderful indicator of business picking up, and that congratulations. It's good news.
Cautious optimism.
Yeah, sorry, you're right.
That's what I would offer.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for you?
Then if I could take a point of personal privilege for 2 things. The first is to note that our annual service awards for long-serving employees will be next Wednesday, the 19th, at the Bernie Center over at UNCW. Board members are welcome to attend. It's a breakfast. It's from 7 to 9. And it's at this annual event that we honor our employees who've served multiple years, 5, 10, 15, 20 plus. So I always want to ensure that you have an open invitation. That's again at the Bernie Center, March 19th. I'll ask Donna if she will please provide a separate invitation.
It starts at 9.
It starts at 7, so, but I guess 7.
Better.
Yeah. Starts at 7. Healthy breakfast, and then a thank you to our long-serving staff. The other point of privilege I would note is we have essentially finished our updates here for this building. You'll see that we are in the Jordan room, which we at staff have dedicated to Matt Jordan. We asked Miss Linda Miles to come by this morning. She says hello. The executive conference room where we were going to have our executive committee meetings is the Miles conference room. That's the glassed in one up front. We still have some acoustic work to do in there, but essentially your building is complete and is open to both staff and the public. So I'd like to send a personal thank you to the staff that were involved, our engineering staff, our central maintenance staff, Mr. John Kapinski, who led the project. And with that, that's the end of my executive record.
Looks good. Dean said it looked like a set and back all the You remember that. Okay. So moving on to committee reports. The executive committee did not meet this month. So moving on to long-range planning.
Large planning that, February 27th, minutes are included in their committee report, presented with the draft fiscal year 2026 CIP and the 10-year plan. There's some other, presentations that we did not get to for time constraints. And we'll note that, Matt has been here for the last two long-range plannings to give us updates on Washington Beach consolidations, and the time has always run out on him, so maybe this month he will knock it out of the park. So, other than that, let's look forward.
Any questions for long-range planning? Moving on to finance.
Finance committee met, March the 5th. The minutes are in your packet. With that, John to do monthly financial update.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's see, so, it's working, nice, that's great. So I shared with the finance committee, last week that, we are projecting a surplus this year. Okay, so again, cautiously optimistic, and this is why. We've been talking about missing low on revenues, SDCs, still is the case, retail revenues as well. That has actually turned around a little bit the past couple of months. And so we are basically not as far behind as we were at this time last year, right? And so kind of when I project everything forward, we're looking to be right there. There's some other news that I shared with the finance committee as well, is that the town of Wrightsville Beach will be making a first installment of the $13 million in capacity charges, SDCs, that they are obligated to pay as part of the consolidation agreement. It's about like $3.9 million. We could see the other half of that $3.9 million. It depends on how the state is going to reimburse them. They're funding this through their $8 million special appropriation that they got to facilitate the consolidation. So that's another reason that will end up in that surplus number. What I'll likely be recommending in the case that we do have a surplus is for that money to stay in that unassigned fund balance. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is to provide an extra bit of cash cushion as projects related to the grants and the loans that we've gotten. Great news, but those are all on a reimbursement basis, right? And so that's a little bit of an interim kind of a cash flow crunch for us. The other reason is it was about time anyways to reevaluate that $50 million unassigned fund balance target. That is not explicitly in policy. That fund balance number is not. What's in policy is that we periodically make a risk-based determination on what that number should be. So it's not a savings account. It's really part of our overall risk management approach, right? So there's a couple of things there. Like we want that to be lean enough where we're not carrying too much, but we want it to protect us in case of some kind of emergency revenue shortage, some type of catastrophic event, right? But we also want to be attractive to the rate agencies. And kind of what we're seeing a little bit is, as our expenditures have increased over time, right, holding this kind of level fund balance results in a diluted days cash on hand. And so it was always intended for that number to eventually be reevaluated. And so I'm thinking, what we discussed is probably around 60, 65 million would be a new target. And we can have that discussion. We are going to be bringing some policy updates. It's about time anyways to kind of go through that exercise, bringing those through finance and through the full board. So that was my update there. Are there any questions on that?
Quick comment, Madam Chair. John, I'd just like to say congratulations. Your last comment there, it really goes to 7, 8 years of work. Starting out, I remember when I first joined this board, we had in excess of $120 million in that unassigned account. And so the concept of holding ratepayers' money off to the side like that made no sense. And the board tasked you to find a way to bring that down, you get it back out of the street and much more manageable. You did it. I could never have imagined we'd be having this conversation over the years when we were constantly, myself, being a burr in your side. How can we get that number down? We did it to the point where we're now really bouncing back up. So great work, John.
Thank you.
Everything's going up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's easy to spend that $120 million with,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, let's see, the next thing I wanted to mention, just about the bond calendar, right? So we carved, off onto, I guess, the finance committee agenda, piece of the agenda, an action item for the bond order, right? So just kind of wanted to run you through what that calendar looks like. I just passed it up. So, yeah, we've scheduled, does this have a little pointer? Anyway, does it? I can't figure it out, I'll probably screw something up. Anyways, so we had our call with Moody's this past, last week sometime, Thursday? Was it Thursday? I thought that went really, really well. We have our call with S&P tomorrow. Friday? Tomorrow, thank you. And so, the next step, obviously from them, is once we have those meetings, they'll be issuing a new updated rating, right? Not sure exactly on the time frame there. It's certainly something that's going to need to be there before the LGC meeting. So probably in the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. We have our bond order that's on the agenda that we'll need to take action on. That's just that final approval that LGC looks for. It's a resolution. It's the authority by this board for us to actually go and do the transaction, right? And then from there, we'll be working with our underwriters, with our financial advisors, really be tracking the market. The underwriters will be, doing their thing, trying to locate buyers and, trying to get us the best rate that they can. And all looking up for a sale on April 16th. Any questions? All right. Lisa, I guess I'll stay up for the.
I think you're next, yep.
Okay.
That's the next.
Okay, yeah. Can we pull that back up, Judy?
What's that?
I guess go back to the agenda where the bond order is. I guess it's under finance. There it is. Thank you so much. So the bond order, just like I said, it's kind of like the final approval by this body to actually do the transaction. It's something that's required for the LGC meeting that's on April 1st to approve the deal. Be happy to answer any questions on that.
If I might, I've been through a number of bond sales in my career. I'm really impressed with the work of our collective team. Davenport is our financial advisor. The PowerPoint presentation that was constructed, led by finance, a number of staff gave input to it. I recommend providing that to you along with Davenport's report. It's a great source of information about the utility, a quick turn to give facts and figures to your constituents or to people who ask. So I'll ask staff if they'll go ahead and give a copy of that to each of you in the near future.
We will.
Chair. John, just curious, I guess the 8 projects we have listed that would be funded, the bond would fund. What happens if another state grant or another revenue source comes in and we can pay for them, pay for one of these or 2 of these projects without bond? Does it affect what we have borrowed the money for?
So it's, no, so, right, there's not, yeah, right, there's not like an audit branch of the LGC or, somebody that's gonna come in and say, oh, you didn't spend this money on these things.
Right.
Now, we will, because we've identified those things as being needed to be funded, with the bond proceeds. But if something like that were to happen, we would still spend those bond proceeds on other things, and that would just maybe free up some additional PAYGO dollars that we could maybe park into the capital reserve for Southside. There's a number of things that we could do.
I would note that we selected these projects because of their stability. It's highly unlikely that we will receive any outside funding for these projects. But if it does occur, there are mechanisms to spend, or to, as John shared, free up PAYGO money for other opportunities.
One question, why is it Southside Community Projects?
That is a great question. So this is an interim borrowing.
Why is it Southside one of the projects?
So this is an interim borrowing. So, what we want to do for that Southside borrowing, because it's going to be huge, right? We want to defer that as long as we can,
Okay.
right? For a couple of reasons, right? I mean, I think one, it buys us more time in terms of this rate smoothing thing. And then, I mean, if you had to ask me, I think it's more likely that rates are going to be lower in 5 years than they are going to be this year or next year, right? So
it's just going to be the next one.
That's exactly right. So we're going to do probably in a year and a half, 2 years, another issue
Okay.
that'll be probably in the $220 to $240 million range for Southside.
Any other questions? All right, if not, we need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
So moved in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. I think that is it. Next is Sustainability Committee, Dr. Candy.
Yes, we met on the 27th, and there's a great presentation, a very dense presentation in your packet. Are we doing a little mini today?
Just a short.
Great, okay. Yeah, after Helene and with all of the activities of CFPUA helping our colleagues in the western part of the state and getting ready for our own storms, we thought it would be a good idea to review disaster preparedness and resiliency. So the presentation we got is going to be much more dense than the overview I think Beth is about to give us.
So the 30-40 minutes from the other day is condensed down to about 5 minutes. With that said, this is a very abbreviated version of the presentation on the emergency planning and response efforts that we provided that day. So the full presentation is in your packet for your reference. So, but with that said, my staff and I are available at any time if you'd like to discuss any of it in further details. So before I start, I'd also like to add that our CFPUA's Emergency Preparedness and Response Program has received many disaster preparedness awards over the years. And we have been sought out by multiple other utilities, including Charlotte, some of the larger utilities around the state, and Raleigh and Durham and those alike, as a model for them and for suggestions and helping them plan. So, and you'll notice that's not me up there, that is Craig Malone. He is our new emergency security and emergency manager. He is over doing an exercise with NC Water One and EPA and various other stakeholders right now over at Spring. So, in case you didn't know, I wanted to make sure you realized that wasn't me. CFPUA's water and sewer services are vital to our community. Resiliency is our capacity to withstand and recover quickly from natural disasters like storms or human-caused events like cyber attacks. An organization's resilience operationally, structurally, fiscally, technologically, and with staffing can reduce the impacts from storms, such events and our customers and on our customers and our staff, and shorten the time that it takes to recover from such impacts. So, our emergency planning focuses on impacts on our system rather than the events themselves. That means focusing on things like flooding, site access, line breaks, water supply, loss of commercial power, and how we mitigate, prepare, respond, and recover. That's the key to our resiliency, and to do so, we have to effectively plan. So I'm going to click this several times because that was animated. So of course, the worst time to develop a plan is during a disaster. Even when you do have a plan, you don't want that disaster to be the first time you're ever trying to execute that plan. So we develop plans, we make preparations, we test our plans through exercises on, quote, blue sky days when it's business as usual. So CFPUA has dozens, as you can see here, this is just some examples, dozens of emergency plans, from very general overarching emergency plans to site-specific emergency and hurricane plans, to plans that are more specific, such as incident action plans for past or potential events, such as algal blooms that we may see coming down the river that impact our water intake. But also events for contingency planning for major complex projects that have the potential for large-scale impacts when things go wrong. So we do pre-planning for those contingencies as well. So CFPUA has a goal to conduct at least one exercise each year. In the recent past, these plans have been overcome by actual events, where our continual improvement efforts have been driven more by after-action reviews and lessons learned. So, of course, no plan is perfect, so we continually review and update our plans. The aftermath of events provides an ideal opportunity when it's fresh on your minds to review our plans, to identify gaps and unforeseen vulnerabilities, and to expand our plans to institute engineering and operational controls to mitigate risk. The most obvious recent examples are Hurricanes Florence and Matthew, which impacted our raw water supply and caused difficulties obtaining sufficient fuel for our generators or to obtain critical supplies. Our after-action reviews of these events mean we now have our own fuel truck, and we have auxiliary fuel tanks to minimize the risk and enable continuity of operations when we're in such situations. We also have taken other steps that include elevating pump station controls, and we are migrating towards dry submersible pumps at pump stations to ensure continued operations during routine dry operations as well as during flooding situations. So bottom line is every event, no matter the size or the cause, provides an opportunity to learn and to improve our resiliency. Even the best plans, training and preparation, sometimes an event can be so large or complex that it can overwhelm affected organizations' resources. We saw that most recently with Helene's devastation of many communities in Western North Carolina. This event highlights the importance of mutual aid agreements across various partners as well as various levels of government. You'll see some listed here. For Helene, CFPUA was among those providing assistance to utilities in need, but we have been on the receiving end as well at times, such as when we had the helicopter that we were able to utilize and assess the raw water damage assessments on the raw water line following Florence. These events really highlighted the value of NC Waterborne as well. It played a vital role in the response to Helene. This group provides utility-to-utility assistance. It can respond more quickly than most other organizations, and its members are subject matter experts in water and sewer and can respond with necessary expertise to help the communities recover. Looking at the devastation in Western North Carolina, it reaffirms our need to continue to look at our plans for worst case scenario as the frequency, intensity, and lead times on various storms have been changing over the years. So I've talked a lot about our emergency planning, and I promise this is the last 2 slides. So I've mentioned much of our emergency preparedness and response efforts and their impact on our resiliency. But security of our facilities and infrastructure, both physical and in the cyber world, are critical to our resiliency as well. Our IT department continually monitors our vulnerability to potential intrusions, cyber attacks, and has implemented multi-layer controls to improve safeguards of our systems. To address physical security, you all notice we do have a New Amber County Deputy Sheriff on site here at 235. This sheriff is also available to help perform other site checks at all of our remote facilities in conjunction with our emergency planning team to identify and mitigate risk. We are currently reviewing and updating our Americans Infrastructure Act Risk and Resiliency Assessment for recertification, along with other assessments that we have pertaining to resiliency. CISA, which is a cyber infrastructure security agency, conducted an infrastructure security tool assessment in 2019 at the Richardson facility, and we'll be doing one on the 13th. It was originally planned for last Friday, but it was moved to this Friday. CISA also conducts first entry safe assessments for facilities and staff, and these are in the process of being scheduled right now. And we highlight these because these are free services that the federal government provides, and they are very valuable in our planning and our readiness.
What's that first entry assessment?
It's looking at the facilities, looking at the securities, looking at how people can get in and access, where your vulnerabilities are. We're going to find out more about it whenever they come and do one. So we're getting those scheduled.
Is it cyber related or is it physical entrance into the?
It is physical.
Okay.
It is physical. They will address some cyber, but the CISA is mostly the cyber. Do you have more information?
And we've had several, most recently, we had a physical entrance of a gentleman who broke into a employee's car and was found in the car with a weapon and drugs. So this type of analysis should be ongoing.
So CFPUA's resiliency planning includes learning from the past and present to be prepared for tomorrow and the long-term sustainability of our systems. To ensure resiliency, our customers, our staff, and our community. CFPUA has a robust program that is a model for many others. Even so, we know that we must continue to evolve our system and train and prepare our staff in order to maintain and improve our resiliency. As I mentioned before, there are much more details provided in your presentation, in your packet, and I'm available to answer any questions that you would like. That's the end of the presentation.
Great. Does anywhere in the contingency plans cover pandemic response?
We have a pandemic response that we put together it actually put together a little bit before COVID, but it has been refined with COVID. But it will be it will be evaluated if we have another one come up or something.
I mean, it is a part of our.
It is part of our.
It is. Pandemic response is part of our response.
Okay. And then second question, do we participate in emergency response drills with LEPC and the county? Yes, a larger group. Okay.
Yes.
And the one we're doing right now is with EPA and Warren, but we also do work with the county and stuff as well. We're working with the county right now, trying to develop one based on the events that have happened in Richmond. We've been in collaboration with them about how we might facilitate one. One of the people that we were working with just left, but so we got to kind of restart from those. But we have been in discussions with them already about that.
So it doesn't mean that we can't fail. It doesn't mean that we won't have a bad day or that we won't have a cyber incident. But this utility is better prepared than most on cybersecurity and incident preparedness and site security.
Yeah, yesterday, when the city went up to Washington for the National League of Cities, and we met with our two senators, and one of the questions that came up with Tom Tillis, one of the city's mayor stood up and they were talking about cyber attacks, what's the federal government doing? And I can't remember the percentage, but it was astounding that the number of incidents were caused by human error within the company, not outside cyber attacks. Well, that was interesting. It gives me a little more warm feeling that we could correct that.
Yeah. Well, you have to protect yourself from all sides. Because it's easy to click on something you shouldn't click on, and our IT department does a good job of trying to make us all aware and train us, and they also have safeguards behind if somebody does click on something they shouldn't. They have a dual threat coming.
Doesn't mean the bad guys aren't out there trying.
That's right.
to do it.
That's right. And we do, by the way, thank our partners with the city who helped sponsor and provided a letter of support for federal legislation to set up a cybersecurity framework for our industry. Our industry shockingly does not have its own cybersecurity framework. And our chief information officer has testified on Capitol Hill before congressional staff discussing the need and providing his expertise. So we are at the cutting edge on the national front for cybersecurity.
Ken, does your comments include the SCADA and our SCADA systems? I always thought that was incredibly well firewalled off.
Well, they are. They're separated from the World Wide Web, so they're separated as much as we can. But the reality is that, as Court shared with you maybe 6 months ago, we have more than 18 to 20,000 attacks on this utility from the top 10 vulnerability attacks that are tracked by the federal government a day. The total number of vulnerabilities and attacks that are used are in the hundreds of thousands. And we're probably, I stopped tracking it 2 years ago at 98,000 for all vulnerabilities. They only have to get it right once. That's why you have a cybersecurity administrator, and you will see some other things come forward in the budget that are cybersecurity centric. So keep that in mind.
And when they share with you the bond presentation, there's a lot of metrics on the cybersecurity in there. Some of the numbers you're talking about, Court has provided in there and did an excellent job presenting that information. There's a lot of really interesting statistics that will really surprise you at how well our IT department manages our cybersecurity. And he's standing there in case we need it.
Available if you have any other questions.
I actually would love to ask Corbin a question.
Yes, a question for you.
Come on in.
I'm trying to figure out what the timing of this report is. It looks like they just, from the size of your governing agency, they've just cut 100 staffers. I'm not seeing a number, but do you think that's going to impact what you do? I feel like you're up and running and that there's only so much hand-holding you'll need anymore.
Yes, it doesn't, I wouldn't say it would directly affect this utility, because you gotta remember, system not just for the water utility, it's for all critical infrastructure sectors. So I think for organizations that do not have a sophisticated and robust cybersecurity plan, it'd probably be more impactful, because a lot of the services that Doug mentioned are free. And so if you do not have the resources, the funding, the FTEs to do all of these things, and you've never done it before, you have to lean on the federal and state sectors to help you provide that service. And so we're light years ahead of where most utilities are. As Ken mentioned, that number that has gone up for the vulnerability is now 270,000.
Wow.
270,000 grows every single day. And so that's against all hardware, software, and we're constantly looking, and we use this as part of this, and it's not going to impact, this customer will not impact this, but they basically look at our outside edge of our firewall every single week to see if any one of those 270,000 vulnerabilities are talking out of our network. And internally, we run those 270,000 vulnerabilities against every single technology asset that exists on our network to see if there are vulnerabilities that exist inside that we need to patch or remediate or mitigate. And so we're doing that all the time. So it's a constant kind of cat and mouse game. As things are discovered, then we go in, we implement, we patch them up and secure them. But we're always looking at the outside edge and the inside edge. And as Ken mentioned, we segment our SCADA environment there are no internet-facing SCADA assets. We don't allow vendors to come in and plug their devices on our network. We don't allow USB devices. Force all vendors to use our multi-factor authentication and log in on a secure virtual desktop, and then protect that virtual desktop to only work to go to the asset that they're working on for a limited time, and then we shut it down when they're done. So multiple layers of control with that mission.
Good for you.
And you can't retire anytime soon. It was plenty of worries. Don't you have one going to college right about now?
I do, so I'll be paying for that for a little while.
Unless you get snatched up. And thank you very much.
All right, that's it for sustainability. We know the Human Resources Committee, we met, February 12th after the board meeting. We've got the intellect, culture assessment presentation, essentially the results of the employee survey. It's in your packet. So at the meeting, we had a presentation from the consultant on that presentation. We have homework, and that the HR committee is essentially now reading through that very detailed presentation and all the employee comments. And then we're meeting on Monday. We'll bring forward recommendations to the board coming out of the intellect assessment. So,
Madam Chair, your staff is prepared for the HR committee staff level review of that document with some potential paths forward that you may have received as soon as today. That was just vetted. So we don't expect the HR committee to take that whole cloth document and work from scratch. We have some ideas for you to start with.
Okay. All right, any other questions for any of the committees? Okay. Looking forward to any old business to come before the board. Okay, just moving into closing comments, just a point of personal privilege. Would like to formally, I think we all know that Hollis Briggs has been absent for quite a while, and most likely will be going forward. So I want formally to, if Hollis ever watches these, I want him to know that, the board, he is in our thoughts and our prayers. Please reach out to him. He's going, obviously needs our love and support and anything we can provide for him. So just keep him in your prayers.
I'll send
everybody his phone number.
Okay.
What'd you say?
I'll send everybody his phone number. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session to discuss contract negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We need to take 5 minutes to.